S10E21. That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me I have Dan. How are you, Dan?
Yeah, look, I'm all right. Nothing like a disappointing cup exit to start the week.
I think I saw it was like, was it 4 or 5? Must be 4 years in a row that we've gone out in the third round, and so you'd be like, yeah, you think we're used to it by now, but I don't know, there's something about the penalty shootout gets your hopes up because you're like, it is just 50-50, but at the same time, there's something about a penalty shootout where I'm just like, we're going to lose it.
I think penalty shootouts, as soon as we get to, it doesn't matter what team it is, as soon as we get, if I'm following them, and as soon as it gets to a shootout or anything, I'm like, we've lost this. I don't know what it is.
And it was extra cruel because Rushworth saves that first penalty and you go, oh, wow, you get the hopes up, and it's the hope that kills you because, you lead all the way through the shootout and then miss 2 in a row to lose it. And what was it? Must have been close to 2 a.m. in the morning. And I originally told myself I'll watch a replay in the morning, and I thought I'll watch the first half, and we looked okay. It's a very frustrating one. But yeah, look, we'll talk the game in general. There's not been as much transfer news as I thought there might have been, but we'll touch on what there has been, and then look ahead to Millwall. But it was actually a really surprisingly strong side that we put out against Doncaster. And I know we sort of, I guess, disagreed before the game in terms of guys like Pedro, Slater starting the game, whether they needed a rest. But Pedro ended up playing the full 120 and was really still putting himself about in the 118th minute or whatever it was. So it was actually, the lineup itself, I don't think we can necessarily criticize.
No, I was probably surprised Pedro played as much as he did. I thought that he might have got subbed, and then I was going, but he's probably going to be a penalty taker, and there's probably a part of you that goes, if we take him off and we have to put on Sellers Fleming or an 18-year-old kid on in his place, and it goes to penalties, then that's a bit rough to. I mean, obviously, maybe if it was Sellers, he maybe isn't in those initial 5 or whatever. But you go, suddenly there's a lot of pressure on some other players that maybe don't want that. So I don't know. It was. I wasn't too surprised. I think the back line was the bit that probably surprised me the most. But I guess because it was Giles, Macca, Burns, and Drame to start, and that was probably the bit where I was probably most surprised to see. I don't really know what I expected, but it wasn't that.
Because I was thinking about
limited options. I was like,
there was limited options. Like I was like, well, Ashby's out on loan, so I was like, maybe Smith gets a go, but do you want to put kids in your back line, or do you go a bit stronger? I'd actually completely forgotten Burns as a potential to come in and get some minutes, and obviously had to go off at halftime with that head injury. But even like Alzate, Puerta, Slater as a midfield, I was like, I would have thought maybe you give minutes to Simons. Maybe there's an under 21 that you chuck in there as well. And obviously, Vaughan, it was Vaughan that started, wasn't it? So who came on? Who am I thinking
for Burstow? Vaughan started in place of Burstow.
Sorry, so Burstow came on, but because the midfield was because Vaughan was out on the wing. Gotcha. And
then Alzate played about 60 minutes or something, and then Simons came on and played about 60 minutes.
That occurred to me as well. I was like, with the extra time, I was like, these guys are actually getting decent minutes. Simons, Burstow as well. But no, and even Kamara starting up top with Pedro and Vaughan. Whether I thought he potentially had a knock after that Leeds game, but clearly played. He was a funny one. Like he seemed to be one that if you told him that there's only 5 minutes left in the half, he's suddenly a completely different player. Because at the end of the first half, end of the second half, and then in extra time as well, I thought those were almost his best patches of the game, where he actually came alive, was trying things, taking shots. Other than obviously plays the ball in for Burstow that leads to the Puerta goal. He, as far as the senior players and expectations I mean, we can talk about Giles for the goal itself. I actually thought Giles, other than that, looked quite good in that first half. I thought Kamara was probably our most disappointing in terms of the senior players.
Yeah, I would say so. It was very interesting that first half because we sent a lot of traffic down that left-hand side, and so Giles and Vaughan saw a lot of ball in that first half. And I don't know whether that's because they thought, we were just trying to attack, whatever his Stereo or whatever his name was, their right back, or whether
I kept hearing Stereo, and I kept hearing it as Seri, and I was like, he doesn't play for us anymore.
Or whether it was just that like Kamara wasn't moving or getting himself into positions, and so they had no choice but to go that side. Because it seemed like whenever Macca and Burns as well got the ball, that it seemed like they seemed to have to hold on to it for a while, waiting for options, which resulted in quite a few driving like runs from Macca where he was just going, like
no one's coming to me.
What do I do? No one wants to move. I'll just run it up and try and get a throw or get a free kick or something a little bit higher. So I'm not sure exactly what happened, but you're right. Like with Kamara, like I think I commented like that he'd been peripheral at best. Like he was barely involved in the first half, and then late in the second half, there was a couple of nice turns, some nice moments where he took on his players. He obviously gets make times that run again, almost a replica of the Leeds opener where he gets 1-on-1 with the keeper, but and then I don't know what, like I don't know what happened then, like what went through his mind. Like it really felt like he went, I can get this bloke sent off and make it easy for us.
Yeah, exactly.
And realistically, what would have made it easy for us? Just score on the damn goal. Like just.
Honestly, it's the same as it reminds me of, was it Twine last season when he was basically through on goal and then dives for a penalty which gets waved away, and you're like, just score the goal. Like I think sometimes players are just like, if I go down or if I draw the foul, then it's 100% like a red card or something. If I miss the shot, they probably don't have that much time to think about it, but it does, like you said, it does feel like they go, I'll get this bloke sent off, and that's going to be better or safer than trying to take a shot.
Yeah, I guess it's like, I thought Kamara would have felt a lot more confident after the 2 goals, his big involvement in the Leeds game, but I guess he's been so down for so long, he still didn't have that confidence to just go, I'm going to score this and be the hero again. And so I think he got into that position and went, I don't know if I can, I can't chip him from here or whatever, or like I have to make this count and try and just try to sort of get something guaranteed out of it. And strangely, we didn't get anything out of it anyway.
Yeah,
I keep seeing these reports about their keeper being the man of the match. I'm like, he shouldn't have even been on the field.
Yeah.
It was a strange one. I see a couple of things sides, like where someone said, like, if Kamara tries to go on the other side, does that mitigate, the defenders being like, does it become a red card if he plays the ball on the other side of him and rah. I don't know, maybe, but I think it should have been a red anyway. I think it was a definite goal scoring opportunity. And for me, the only way I could see a situation like that where the keeper takes out the player and it only is a yellow is when it's out in like one of the wide channels, like he's come out of his box out there, and you go, well, he's still got 30 or 40 yards but all like Kamara literally has to do if he isn't taken out there is be able to get one touch on the ball to roll it into the net. And I think he can easily do that and get there in front of the defenders that we're tracking back. So
what struck me about it was it did feel like the ref was one who was very happy to hand out yellow cards, but really, really, really didn't want to hand out a red card, because I think it was 8 players got booked for Doncaster. There was that scuffle with Pedro where no cards were handed out, despite all of their players being on yellows. Normally you'd see a yellow handed out each way. It did strike me, and the only justification I've seen, which I don't agree with anyway, but the justification, like you said, is, there's that covering defender, so therefore Kamara's not going to get the chance anyway. But the way I see that, it's almost like an offside where you have to be behind 2 opposition players to be onside. And everyone always forgets that because they always discount the goalkeeper. But when you're denying a goal scoring opportunity, it's not as if they say, the keeper's still in goal. Like, the keeper can stop the shot. Like, the keeper is almost discounted from that. So if it's the keeper who's coming out, that defender who's closer in, I'm like, isn't he basically just the keeper in that situation? And you're saying, well, the keeper is still denying the goal scoring opportunity, regardless of the covering defender in that case. And I don't know if that's technically the rule, but it strikes me that it's a bit of a loophole otherwise, that the keeper can come out and be like, oh, well, there's a defender closer in, where I'm like, yeah, but in a normal situation, the keeper's closer in. So it seemed a very clear red to me. And I think it was just the ref bottled it. And there was other ones as well, like where you see like second yellows that should have been given and other calls where you're just like, he just didn't want to adjust. He didn't want to impact the game in that way.
Yeah, which I don't know. I get, like, I think like there's a lot of pressure on refs not to, like, all the talk about the refs are making the games about themselves or whatever when they when they make big calls and they send someone off, for example, in a game like that. But also, I think you just have to do the job on hand, and in that situation, I think if that's not a red, I just really don't know. But
credit to Pedro for the ball, though. I mean, I think that kind of gets forgotten about because of what then happens. But Pedro picks that ball up really deep, swivels, and just plays a lovely through ball for Kamara. And it's like we've just been seeing that more and more from him under Sayers, and he's looking really sharp. And then, like I said, 119th minute, I think it is, he's the one that runs back to make a covering tackle to pick the ball up and drive us forward again. Like he, as you know, a 32, we keep saying 32 as if it's old. It's really not. But as a 32-year-old playing 120 minutes against, League Two side, which you could excuse him for thinking is sort of like a game that's a bit beneath him at his, stage of his career. He was like putting himself about and really showing the other players, the level required.
Yeah, I think he had a really strong game. And we've been talking about the last couple of episodes I've been on that he's been growing and growing and growing, as his fitness grows, as I guess, his sense of, I guess, like maybe connection with the group, as he builds into that and takes on a more leadership role and gets involved in that leadership group more, the more comfortable he becomes, he's seeming to become a really, really important player. Probably way more important than I envisioned, but another really strong showing from him. I would say Alzate had some really nice moments in the first in his time on the park.
Puerta, I thought, obviously getting his first goal was really good for him.
I actually, there was a moment, because I think over the last maybe 2 months, Puerta strikes me as like, there's been a couple of really petulant yellows that he's got. And I thought there was a moment in this game where he got cleaned up by one of
he got past
the Doncaster boys. Yeah, like a really thing. And I just thought, oh no, he's just going to go off the deep end here, and he's just going to and then there were some moments where I thought, then there's the scuffle and things like that where you go, God, he's not going to go and do something stupid, is he? And he just fully held himself together in this game, and I thought it was really, it's some of the treatment he got, that it was a game where he really could have almost been justified in losing his temper, losing his lot with some of the Doncaster players. But I guess I would say probably all the midfielders had pretty strong games. There was, I think, even Slater. There was a moment where I think, was it Kamara? No, it was Coyle. I think late in the second half where he cut inside his player, and Slater makes this great run into the box. And Coyle doesn't play it, and then we sort of like, it turns to nothing, and then I think we turn it over, and everyone's got to turn and run back the other way. But I was like, oh man, that was the ball. If it could have snuck through, but I think Slater did a lot of hard work as usual, without probably as much of the maybe the driving forward sort of stuff that we see from him. But I think a really clean sort of game from him.
But
was pretty good when it came on.
Yeah, I was just going to say on Slater, I think there's one point late in the game where he gets cleaned up basically on the byline, and instead of sort of sooking or taking his time, he sees, I want to say it's Kamara free in the box, and just plays a really quick free kick into him to create a chance. Yeah. It's just that sort of presence of mind. Obviously got to wear the armband to start the game as well. But yet, as you say, I think all of the midfield really had good games. Simon's coming on as well and playing well. My concern with Puerta as well is I think there were a few reports he was sort of hobbling around at the end of the game, and then obviously didn't take a penalty in the shootout. So I'm hoping that there's nothing kind of wrong there. You sort of said earlier in the episode about, you know, the lineup of the penalty takers and who would or wouldn't want to take a penalty. I think it's telling in a way that Kamara didn't take one. Hopefully Puerta was just sort of from an injury related basis. But the first, 4 penalties we took were really well taken. Coyle, Slater, McLaughlin, and Pedro. And then, I mean, in theory, Burstow should be one that's, you know, ready and willing to take a penalty as a striker. But it's I think it says a lot that he's sort of the 5th taker, not, and then Jones is the 6th, not like a Kamara or I mean, even Simons I would have thought you'd put up before some of those, but I guess it's easier in hindsight.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I think sort of given the context of that kick as well, I think like I feel really bad for Burster because you know that was the one. If he scores that, we win, and obviously that's a lot of pressure. And I think he had an idea. He was sort of trying to go copy Coyle's, you know, high, like sort of, you know, top corner penalty, but just kind of got it all wrong. And then Jones's was just atrocious.
Yeah,
like I just
which is worse in your mind?
Fully Jones. I think Jones' penalty is way worse because like for me at least, Burstow had an idea of what he wanted to do and he just fucked it up. Whereas I look at Jones and it looked like he didn't know what he wanted to do, and then so he ended up he went up to take it and then he must have changed his mind at the last minute or something and he's just rolled it straight down the middle. It was really, really poor, especially from one of our like senior players who's got 200 or something, like, you know, 200 appearances at championship, you know, level or like sort of, you know, in the leagues. Like it just not really good enough from like, and you know, when Burns goes off, Jones comes on, takes the armband. You go, well, this is like, you know, your vice captain essentially, and not like, I know it's a penalty shootout and I hate them. I did the same. Like I suck at penalty shootouts, and I've, you know, but like you expect more from someone who's actually normally so like cool-headed and cool and calm and collected with stuff. I think even in the game, you saw there's a moment where he picks it up. He's got 2 Doncaster players on him, and he just turns and rolls straight back through the middle of them, and then like, you know, distributes the ball. And you go like, he's like, you know, you always go back to that. One of the first things they described him as the, you know, Rolls Royce of a footballer or something. Like he got that really nice like descriptor, and you could see it from time to time, and then that just went out the window for the shootout. But overall, yeah, disappointing end to what was another very short cup run.
Yeah, well, I was going to say if we're talking disappointments, because I realize I've been talking about this game for quite a while, but we'll just touch on disappointments. Firstly, of course, the goal conceded, and I think it's really harsh because it plays into this narrative on Giles, and I think he's a really easy boo boy for people to jump on the back of and say, oh, you know, terrible defending. And I agree to an extent that, yeah, his body, his positioning is not perfect because he does actually go to play the ball and just misses it. It's sort of like inches away from him just having a really easy interception. But I think that detracts a lot from, he put a lot of good efforts in that first half, a lot of good balls. And as you said, like a lot played down that side. But yeah, ultimately, the fact that he isn't strong enough to really kind of regain the ball, or at least get the Doncaster players able to hold him off very easily for that chance, was really disappointing for me. And Vaughan's probably the other one on that side, the other disappointment where, yes, he was very busy. Yes, he had a lot of the ball, but due to his size, I just think for someone that small, I mean, I look at someone like, it's Nisbet, right? Who was at Central Coast.
Yeah.
Who's really small, but he's got that ability to sort of make up for that or to compensate for that. And Vaughan, to me, doesn't have like the pace or the technical skill to make up for his size. So he just gets the ball and then he just basically runs into players who are able to just hold him off. And he just runs into corners and brick walls where he just can't do anything with it. So they were probably the 2 disappointing factors for me.
Yeah, I think Giles, I do think probably could have done better with for that goal, but then also it was a pretty easy counter that they made. Like as a whole, we should have been able to recognise that, shut that down better. I don't think it's all on Giles. It's just that, as you say, he's the one who missed that last little touch. I mean, that's football. Like, if he gets that, he's not quite a hero, but almost a hero, like, for making that last-ditch touch or whatever, but misses it, so he's getting crucified. And I've just read this afternoon that apparently Burrow's going to make another attempt to lure him back there, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, look, I don't know. I guess, like, the other thing to say, just like on a minor note, Rushworth gets his gets the start.
Yeah, what did you make of him?
Go. Look, he was solid. I think probably one thing I liked was that he was reasonably quick with his distribution. He's reasonably quick at making a decision and releasing the ball, which helped us get on the front foot pretty well quite a number of times. And there were a couple of times where he saw the pass he wanted to make, went to play it, and I think there was one where he wanted to play it out to the left, and it was Vaughan or Giles or someone who turned their back on him, and he blasted him and just screamed at him and was like, "Don't like." So I think it'll be interesting. It creates an interesting, almost dilemma. Like, I think he had a really strong performance. It's actually been interesting because we have 3 goalkeepers like this year, and they've all like had, I think, made reasonably good impressions on their, on their debuts or in their time between the sticks. So I don't know. I think Panda will still probably take up his number 1 position against Millwall. But
do you think we're now in the situation though where it's almost like waiting for Panda to make a mistake to justify the change?
I don't think it. I don't know if it'll be. Like, I actually don't know. Like, I think it's really tight. I think Panda's done a lot of really good stuff this year, and I think
he's leading our player of the season, for what it's worth.
I thought he had a really good game, but I don't necessarily think that, like, there's that. Like, I don't think there's a huge where you go, Rushworth's like way better, and it's just we're giving Panda the benefit of the doubt until he makes a mistake. I think it just creates a really strong, like a really good battle for that number 1 position, which hopefully is just going to push whoever it is, whoever gains or keeps, who's in that number 1, like just pushes them to that sort of that next level. And I think I guess that's good for us. You want goalkeepers who have that good competition, who are pushing each other. So I think it's about our best stocked position is in goalkeeper at the moment, where we've got high quality keepers, but everywhere else we're a bit light on in terms of depth. So
yeah, well, actually, it's a good segue. We'll talk transfer news now. Then Crooks announced from Real Salt Lake over in the MLS, signing on a 2.5-year deal. Adds a bit of height, versatility, aggressiveness in that midfield, which, I mean, we've been sort of calling out for. Can play anywhere across the front 3 as well, which is, good versatility, particularly at the moment. Playing Burstow out on that left wing gives us a bit more of an opportunity there. And the physicality and the height, I think, our midfield in general is pretty short. Like, you're looking at your Slaters and your Puertas, like, they're not the tallest of players. So being able to get crosses in from, if Giles hangs around, Giles and Coyle. And I think Giles would have played with Crooks at Middlesbrough, which is kind of funny. So maybe a combination that can link up again. Gelhardt doing a medical or having done a medical and basically agreed a deal to join on a 6-month loan at this stage. I don't know if there's going to be an option in that. I wouldn't actually be shocked if there is, because to me, he's not really going anywhere at Leeds. And I could imagine it'll be a sort of deal where, say, he comes in and scores 2 to 3 goals and looks pretty, decent and works well in Salas' setup. An easy one to make permanent in the summer and just take away a bit of a headache in the summer transfer window. And then this mystery winger who we've had a fee agreed with all week, expected to sign in the next few days, supposedly, but with absolutely no names linked in relation to him. Basically, the club kind of trying to stay tight-lipped because they don't want to alert other clubs, which, look, I don't know. Like, I'm not imagining it's going to be a, superstar player, but they must be of a reasonable caliber for us to be that sort of concerned about it. I mean, of course, it's going to be Jared Bowen returning to City to help us get out of trouble. But
he does have a lot of championship experience.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I mean, Crooks and Gelhardt, thoughts on those, and then I guess thoughts on the winger.
Look, I think Crooks would be good. All good reports, from Borough fans and those sorts of things. That he was, a really good player for them. Championship experience, all that sort of stuff, ticks all those boxes where you go, he can come in and do the job at this level. So we're not worrying about, bringing in some random from, Fenerbahce or some, random, German club and going, can they hack it at this level? It's a guy that we know can. So I think that's good. I think the little bit of versatility that he offers will be good. I think probably I guess it'll be interesting to see where he starts. I'm suspecting that he's kind of going to be in that sort of number 10 sort of position to start with. I think I would suspect that he's come in to sort of sit.
I'd imagine probably replacing Slater would be my guess.
And that means like then you've got when it does go wide and the crosses come in, it's Pedro and this 6'4" fella or whatever instead of the 5 foot nothing. I think there are other options, but so I think he's a good signing. I'm pretty excited to see what he can do. The Gelhardt one, I don't know. It makes sense a little bit. I don't know if he's the player that's going to get us out of trouble right now. It kind of seems like this is an eye on the future one where we can grab that sneak preview. And if he looks okay, you can go, well, Leeds looks like they're in an automatic sort of form, and you go, well, you're barely in their team at the moment. If they go up to the Prem, you're probably not getting a look in up there anyway. So sort of, as you say, if he comes in and scores a few goals and maybe we can coax him, for next season, then it's probably not too bad. But I still feel like we're going to be a bit light on. Although maybe with a experienced winger who can come and add some goals as well, maybe that balances it out a little bit. But who knows? I mean, stranger things have happened. Like he's not been playing a lot. He hasn't scored a lot of goals the last couple of years, but just needs the right opportunity, the right environment, and maybe so as it says, the system will suit him. I don't really know that. I don't know if he's that pacey or anything. I don't know if he's got any really good attributes.
He seems. I mean, I don't know too much about him either, to be honest. But he does seem the sort to suit, say, as a system in terms of that high press, high energy player, because he did go into Leeds under Bielsa and he did do, he scored a couple of goals for them in the Premier League and everything like that. But no, you're right. Like he seems that sort of one that either in 6 months will just go, oh, that was a complete waste of time, or it'll come off. But it's sort of tricky in our situation where you can't just go out and sign like can't even think of a good example, but like you're not going to sign like a Danny Ings or someone who is a high profile, high wage earner, proven record.
Or like a Morgan Whittaker or something.
Yeah, that's right. Like to drop into a relegation battle and like you're not going to be fishing in that sort of market. You're going for the bargains. You're going for the players that other clubs don't really rate, who you kind of back yourself to turn around and get something out of, because even if it's a case that he does sign on a permanent and has a reasonable start to his City career and then attracts an interest from a bigger club, you go, well, we've just bought a player for next to nothing, got a year and a half of good service out of him and then sold him on. That's almost sort of got to be the mindset to an extent at the moment. It almost seems like we're kind of going, because we're bringing quite a few players this window, it does feel like we're sort of trying to hedge our bets a little bit, where you get like a Matt Crooks who's like 30, 31, who's like, here's your experienced, heaps of championship experience, good goal record, everything else. But then we're also going to go for a few gambles as well, where if, say we sign 7-8 players and 3-4 of them work out, you're suddenly going, okay, we're actually in a reasonable position. But the Gelhardt one in particular, it's going to be really hard to judge until the end of the season, I think, in terms of whether it works out or not. It's sort of like Connolly when he joined on loan, and you kind of go, oh yeah, could be all right.
So don't know. There's a few names being floated about. There's Taylor from Celtic, I think.
Oh yeah, is he a
Greg Taylor
fullback?
or something? I think so. They, like Porteous was mentioned and stuff.
Yeah, Porteous. Yeah.
We've had a bid rejected for Morgan Whitaker.
Yeah, that was a funny one.
Surprisingly,
Yeah. It does feel like that one was more of a Burnley are interested. Let's try and put some other club names out there to sort of boost up the urgency or the price that we might get. Because I think Baz was saying he didn't think there was too much in that one.
Yeah, it kind of almost feels as much like them going like, here's a way that we can show that we are like serious. Where they go like,
yeah, true.
We're putting out a bid on this like highly sought after player that we, the appearance is that we think we can like compete for his signature or whatever. And even if it's not true, like other players might look at that and go, oh, you tried to get Whitaker, like that's like a serious sort of like play you're trying to get.
It does remind. I feel like we did that a few times under the Allams. I can't remember the name of the striker who was at Cardiff, who we were sort of in negotiations for. He'd had a good season for them, and he was valued at, I don't know, a couple of £1 million. And we were definitely not signing multi-million-pound players at that point. But you just felt like it was a case of, oh, look, we're genuinely trying to spend some money, and oh, what a shame it didn't work out. We didn't buy the player. We didn't have to spend the money. Definitely interesting. We'll see. Presumably before the weekend, a bit more news from this winger. Judging by how long the Crook's deal got to be announced, we don't know quite how quickly deals are getting done, but we'll certainly see. But we do have Millwall this weekend, just to round things off, headed up by Alex Neil, who took over after Neil Harris resigned a couple of months ago now, and they won in the FA Cup against, I think it was Dagenham and Redbridge, but have only got one win in the league in their last 5 games. So, we were sort of talking before the episode, definitely in that same bracket as, say, a Swansea, who we were able to get a win over. This one's at Millwall, so an away game. Oh, the one factor we didn't talk about in the Doncaster game, we seem to talk about absolutely everything else, was the state of the pitch. Just how awful that was. So being away from home for this one is certainly a blessing.
Yeah, I can't. Who did they get? Is there a way you can get like insurance on pitch renovations?
Yeah, did we get a receipt for that? Because it's it's worse than last season.
It's shocking. That was so bad. I can't believe.
Just watch the footage and you see the dirt like kicking up off the pitch as they're running. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was atrocious. And it only seemed to be like one half. Like the half at Doncaster was defending in the first half didn't seem that bad. And then it was not good. I don't. Yeah, for what that £1 million or what have they spent on retail? Geez, find a new contractor next time. Something. Yeah. That was atrocious. Look, I think it's a very winnable game. Against Millwall, at Millwall, probably plays in our favour. Our home record is atrocious. We've got maybe a win in the last 12 months there or something, 2 wins or something in 2024 or something. Like
was it 3? Maybe it was 4 wins in the end. I know it was 3 for ages, but I think that Swansea game gave us our 4th at home.
Oh,
but like two for the season or something. Yeah,
that's atrocious. So, but like away. Seems to be not this season so much, but away seemed to be a much more profitable affair. So I'm pretty confident. I think, even though that game was the cup game was really frustrating, I think that quite a few players can still come out of that with their heads held reasonably high. As frustrating as it was to walk away not going into the next round. And potentially missing out on like Palace or something, like would have been a really exciting sort of fixture. But I think we can go there and pick up the points, and hopefully that'll bring us out of the zone if we're not.
Yeah, I think it would. And I think certainly like 3 wins in what would be? I think this is like, say, it's his 7th or 8th game. You're sort of looking at three wins and a couple of draws in 8 games, and it's actually a pretty decent points return. And you're right, like that sort of pulls us out of that relegation zone. I mean, yeah, Millwall certainly gettable. I think SA is off to Palace to join Eze, so they'll have SA and Eze on their wings, which will be nice and fun for the Palace fans. But I was looking at Millwall's last game in the league. They drew 2-2 with Sheff Wednesday, and George Honeyman scored. And I was like, oh God, we want to talk about former players coming back to haunt us, whether he's proving a threat for us. But no, we were talking before about potential lineup for this one. I think you were saying Panda probably starts in goal again for this one. It probably does come down a bit to injuries and how players pulled up from the 120 minutes against Doncaster. But I wouldn't imagine, and it's going to be really interesting, like you were sort of saying, like for Burstow having missed that not quite decisive, but penalty to win the game. I would presume he'll be thrown back into the starting 11 for this one, but interesting to see how he kind of copes with that blot, I suppose, from the Doncaster game. Crooks, I would expect probably off the bench, but so you're almost looking at an unchanged team potentially from the last league game almost.
Yeah, probably. Because I was a little bit surprised not to see Jacob involved in the cup game at all. Like, I don't think he was on the bench either. So,
I think so.
I'm not sure whether that was just like an omission to say like we could, give Giles a run or whatever. But I think, something like Panda, Jacob, obviously McLaughlin, Jones. I think Drame again. I think. Even though Coyle was good off the bench, I actually thought Drama had a reasonable game against Doncaster, and then probably the Slater, Alzade, Puerta in the middle, and Kamara, Burstow, and Pedro up top. I don't know where is Longman. Is he back from his?
I think Longman's meant to be back. Yeah,
because I think they were saying he was sort of close for the cup and he might have played, but so you got bring Longman off the bench, bring Crooks off the bench. If Gelhardt gets done in time, he'll probably get some minutes somewhere, probably on the wing because I play players in their positions. But I think it's very. I feel pretty confident despite what's been, disappointing week. I think, winnable game. We should go there and be pretty confident. Get a couple of goals. Get some players in form. And then
go from that.
Yeah,
so 2-0, 2-1 sort of scoreline, you reckon?
I'd really be really happy with a clean sheet. So something like a 2-0 would I think make me very, very happy, very, very content.
I think I was looking at goal difference, not that it hugely matters. Our goal difference is actually pretty reasonable, but I was looking at, I want to say it's Portsmouth, who are a couple of places above us and have a really similar goal difference. So I was like, a 2-0 win or something like that would be quite handy from that perspective. So look, to be honest, I'd take a 1-0 at this point, but a 2-0 with Crook scoring off the bench should be just about the perfect score for this one. I think it's tough because I'm like, I do feel confident going into this game, and I'm almost like that's dangerous that when I feel confident, it doesn't tend to go well. But no, I completely agree. I think this is the sort of game we just need to be targeting for the 3 points. We've shown that we have actually had a pretty decent run in the league. The 3-3 against Leeds should hopefully give players confidence, even if we didn't get over the line against Doncaster. I thought actually the fact that we fought back and got a goal against Doncaster and looked like we could have run over the top of them. I actually thought, all in all, the performance against Doncaster wasn't actually that bad. Like you look at Coyle having that shot that blazes over the bar from basically an open goal. You look at the Kamara chance that we've talked about. There's a handful of other chances as well.
The other Kamara one, the one he puts wide.
The one he puts wide in the first half. I think we had something like 8 shots on target to their 2.
The Pedro free kick.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those ones. I mean, we talked about a lot last season around the difference between a a good performance and a bad result, and a bad performance and a bad result in terms of, the scoreline didn't favor us. But if Coyle scores this chance, for example, we win 2-1, everyone's probably sitting there going, oh, look, yeah, it was a struggle, but we actually played pretty well and we got over the top of them. So I'd hope that the players can take the positives out of the game and sort of apply it against Millwall, who haven't had the best of starts under Neil. I think it's the early game, so I think it's 11 p.m. or 11:30 p.m. here in Sydney, so it's actually not too bad a time for us to watch either. And hopefully get the 3 points in this one. But thank you for joining me for this one, Dan.
No worries. I'll see you next week to talk about a resounding victory.
Absolutely. We'll be talking 3 points against Millwall next week. But until then, come on, City.